my hard question for you.
Okay.
So on Fitech, I get it, personally,
Okay.
which is hard, and that's my point in my question. Not that what you guys do is hard to understand. Think about all the companies that we talk to. Usually at least a couple of new ones a day. We look at a lot of software.
Yeah.
A lot. And we both kind of chuckle. We got our little one-liners with them, like, we've done this a lot. It's okay. You can give me the crash course, right? We can understand difficult stuff, but you guys are deep and wide, right?
Yeah.
And so I think about, so you mentioned merchant services. I'm thinking about everything from the payment side. Oh my goodness, what a maze that very few people understand, and almost none understand well. And I'm not one, right? And then if you think about the accounting and how everything plays out there, right? Think about, I don't know, whether it's QuickBooks or, the business side, how all that ledgers up. That gets so nasty. And then I was thinking about your background, like we talked about Happy State, moving into the treasury side, right? And all the stuff you must have seen. You've kind of seen all sides of that. And when I look at Fitech, it's kind of funny because to me you fit so perfectly there, right?
Yeah.
Your background and what I've always worked with you on.
So what are the different things y'all do?
Interesting.
So that's a big question.
Told
right?
you it was a hard question. See?
Let's just start with the basic of like merchant services. And if you ask a banker, why should I bank with you versus the other bank that's on the other corner? They're going to talk about customer service. They're going to talk about whatever. What I would say for us, what makes Fitech different than, there's a bunch of other merchant card processors, whether it's an ISO who's also using one of the bigger guys, or you've got the big guys, right? What makes us a little bit unique is that we're what's called a direct back-end processor. So what that means is essentially we've got control issues is the easiest way to explain it. We want to control the settlement. We want to control all the technology that with all of our partners. We want to be able to control the reporting. We want to control all of the software aspects of it. We want to make sure that we're controlling the customer service of it. Because when we're talking to, our bread and butter is community banks. That's who we work with is community banks. And so when you think about a community bank, one of the most important things to them is their brand.
Right.
That is my customer, it's my loan, it's my deposits, and I'm handing off that customer to you to handle to be able to take cards.
So things like call center become
Oh,
imperative
yeah.
because it's on behalf of, right?
Yep.
Crazy important, And so we always tout that we've won it's called an ATSI award 10 years in a row, and basically it's like a secret shopper, right? And so we hold ourselves to such a high standard, not because we want to make sure we have good customer service, yes we do, but we want to make sure we're representing the bank brand really, really well. Because the last thing that we want to happen is they've got this great experience in the bank, but then on one product where we say we're their partner, that's exactly right. So we make sure to have probably one of the best customer services out there. The piece that I would also talk to is that we're probably one of the best revenue share companies out there when it comes to merchant card processing. And what I mean by that is like, we believe in community banking. IBAT is where we got our start. It actually started at the Winter Summit, Sean talking to Chris Williston at the time and having an idea and started this merchant processing for specifically for community banking. So we've got one of the best revenue shares out there. And the reason we do that, yes, we could do a lower and we can match the competitors, but we believe in community banking. It just boils down to that, And so, yes, it's merchant card processing, and it's different. We maybe have a lot of different acquirers, and we've got different technology, right? When you think about technology, I remember whenever I was a banker, I had called, I'm not going to say the name, but a large core provider who handled our internet banking, and I said, I want this integrated. It was $100,000 just to have them.
18 months.
Oh,
It's
it
on the
was
roadmap.
ridiculous just to get them to do an integration where we wanted online account opening, just a SSO type deal. Our integrations, we've got 3 different API portals that you can use, and it's all free. Our team that we provide, our project management, it's all free. And that's just, we want to make sure to know that, we were talking about how technology has changed over the years. Merchant services is changing.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I want to hit on a highlight that me and you talk about a lot. It's everybody's winning in that scenario,
Yeah, that's right.
right? How many times do you see that? And what you're literally explaining is
Short list.
Fitech is winning, the community bank is winning, and I'm going to probably make a good assumption that the merchants are winning as well.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Everybody's winning that. I just want to put that
I
out real
tried to
quick.
boil this down to accounting. That was my analogy. Embarrassing, but I love everything you talk about. It's funny because it's like the merchant version of program management for merchants, right? Everything all wrapped up. And I mean, you think about, especially in the FinTech world today, that side is super heavy. The one-stop shop concept, right? And those guys have run off with things in an area that there's. What do you think, Matthew? If I'm a bank under $1 billion, if I actually was even able to figure out my interchange, probably zero.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, zero.
And
I've
so-
got banks that are $3 and $5, $10 billion that can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, look, I am at least smart enough on the payment side to know that we don't need to make it that difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
I've spent the time at the Visas and the MasterCards and seen what those agreements look like when they get passed down to processors. And they're not that complicated.
Yeah.
Right? They get complicated along the way, and typically for a reason. That's a part of this that I think is just
There's a
baffling,
bunch
You know,
of
I
different
had-
ways to set it up.
right?
I had a guy call me, and he was actually not a bank, but I had worked with, he was a vendor that I had when I was working at a bank, and he was looking at integrating payments.
Mhm.
And so he calls me and he says, "Hey, what do you think about this idea?" So I give him some advice, and so he's like, "Wait, you guys do processing, right?" And I said, "Yeah, we do."
Mhm.
And he said, "Well, what, could I use you?" And I'm like, "You can, but I'm going to make you go get other bids
Right.
because
Yeah.
you're my friend
Yeah.
and I want to give you the advice." So he goes and talks to these other companies. And to your point, he comes back and he says, "You guys are the most cut and dry when it comes to reporting all the interchange, the revenue share, every bit of it. You are so easy. I don't know why other people have these different tiers and it's very complicated." I'm
So
like,
messy.
it gets very messy.
We've talked to vendors out there, this is funny, almost a new class of vendor, that are in the business of formulating almost a spreadsheet style calculator to help solve the problem
Yeah.
of understanding, right, interchange and rev splits. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Say we've gone too far, right?
Yeah.
That's a tough world.
Right. I remember having this conversation with you early on, and we're talking about bankers helping bankers, and you guys becoming a sponsor. And I love how that you went and said, "This is why we need to do it." I think that's a good story to say, "Hey, why do you believe in being a sponsor so much?"
I mean, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier. We believe in community banking.
No, don't give me that bullshit.
Well, I mean, it really is.
No,
Now,
what was the story? No, give it. Tell me. What is your words?
You may have to tell me. I don't even remember my
You
words
said-
at that time.
You said bankers helping bankers is giving the data to the banks that they've never had before,
It's true.
and it's creating that transparency.
I remember whenever you guys showed it to us, and for me, it was like an aha moment.
Yeah,
They'd come and they showed it up there, and I'm like, wait a minute, you can see all the different systems.
yeah.
I can call my buddy at this bank and I say, "Hey, I remember, let me go back.
Now he's fired
Yeah,
up.
I'm fired
do
up.
it.
I remember we were going to conferences and we were writing all of our systems on the back of our cards to hand to other bankers at these conferences so that they would know what systems we used and vice versa, so that whenever we got back home, we could call them and say, "Hey, I saw you were using FIS, etc. How are you doing on this? What are you doing here?" Because there was no way to communicate who was using what system.
That's how important interoperability is. It's a
Yeah.
major disqualifier for both sides.
Yep.
I'm with you.
And the other thing I like that you said is there's a lot of people out there peddling bullshit. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's really where I'm wanting you to go, and I know you don't want to go there. They're out there peddling bullshit, But this is giving the banks the data that they never had before.
It gives them the power to really look at the different systems, see what's really happening. And when you're talking about peddling the bullshit, let's talk a little bit about that. We were talking about sales earlier, and when you're talking about sales, when I was working at a bank, we would look at different fintechs and we would look at different companies, and it was vaporware. I remember one company specifically.
Yep.
They're like, when you talk about the sales approach, they wined and dined us. And I mean, took us on a private jet,
Yep.
flew us across the country.
This is a pretty cool story, though.
It is.
We really need to go into details.
Go
on
for
some of
it.
the
Go for
story.
it. Yeah.
So this is no lie. They call us up and they say, hey, we want to show you our product. And we're like, we got a whole lot of stuff going on. They're like, okay,
Kind of busy.
but we're going to put you on a private plane.
We'll send the jet for you.
I'm like, I'm sorry, say that again? Like, our company has got a private jet. We're going to pull up to Amarillo, Texas. And I'm like, well, how does this even work? I've never been on a private jet. They're like, you
Do I
pull
need a
up,
passport?
you pull up to the airport 5 minutes before you get it, and you get on a plane, and we're going to fly you there. And I'm like, I don't know what we got to do, but I got to get on this plane. Right? Is that not what we said?
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, Ryan calls me up and says, dude, they just sent me a list
Yeah.
asking what we want to drink on this plane. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? So this is how much they're whining and dining
So it's
us.
kind of setting the bar for each of your vendor
Oh,
experiences going
man.
forward.
But
right?
doesn't that speak to how much
Well-
margin there must be?
Well, hang on.
Here's the thing.
It gets worse.
Here's the thing. We get off at the airport, and you're probably going to be able to zero in very quickly who we're talking about, because we get off at the airport in North Carolina, and Michael Jordan's airplane is parked next to ours. And I'm like, shit, this is incredible. But then what happens when we go look at the product?
There is no product. It's vaporware.
They have us go into a room with a product owner that they've hired from the bank, with a room full of developers, and they've told us before we got there, it's going, we've got banks on it. And we get there and we're like, well, are you integrated with bill pay? Well, that's on Sprint 22.3. What are you on now? 10.2?
Or we'd say, can you do this? Well, we can write it in.
Oh
Well,
yeah, we
that's
can
the
do
answer
that.
for everything at that
Yeah,
point,
yeah, we
right?
can do
Because
that.
it's not a true
It's on the
product.
roadmap.
It's
Yeah,
on the
we can
roadmap.
do
We
that.
can build that. Well, of course you can. You can technically build anything if you haven't built it, right?
But even though we got to go on a really cool freaking airplane ride, right?
Yeah.
And we got to see Michael Jordan's airplane. We might have taken selfies with it. But the crazy thing is, the amount of time that we lost from the bank because we thought there was a product there because we didn't know. We didn't have that information to tell us there's no freaking banks on this system.
So let me ask you guys this question. When you're talking to fintechs or these other vendors, obviously sales is a big part of it, but how important is the product? There's a fine balance there, right? Where you focus
so what's
on
a
too much.
fintech? Are we talking about a product that goes in a bank? Or are we talking about a product that requires a bank charter to run?
However you want to define it.
Okay.
I would.
Say that it goes in a bank. I'll tell you one of the things I think is the coolest. The customer base. I have a bunch of our customers that, granted, wonderful paying customers, all works out well, but the level of data and information that we provide and the level of training that we do for their sales team, they don't want to waste their time, obviously.
Yep.
It's actually the highest level of integrity, if you could think about it, by the
Yep.
math. They're trying to go find the most qualified institution and do as much homework as they can
Yep.
to make sure when they're calling on a bank that it's the right one.
Yep.
That in itself is like, if we could just get there in the industry, we'd be somewhere. Rather than, let's all go to the giant conference and hope a bank stops by our booth. And then
Yeah.
we don't have an integration, but we'll write it. right?
Yeah.
So what were you asking there, Ron?
Well, it's just how do you focus? What do you tell a smaller company that is selling a product to a bank? Do you focus so much on product, or do you focus on the sales approach? Right? You can spend too much on whining and dining and going to conferences, and
Yeah.
what's the value there versus spending the money on the product and then just focus on the product, but nobody knows you actually have a product, right? What's the balance, and what are you
Okay.
telling companies?
It's a great question. So we focus on, we talk about like a like the cops get the bad guy and they put him in the interrogation room and there's the two-way mirror, right?
Right.
If you just switch places, it's kind of the same thing either way, right? All right, so for a company, we'll call it ideal customer profile. Internally, we just call it ICP, right? So, okay, I need Jack Silver Lake integration. I need ag banks below $1 billion, greater than blah, 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 with freckles in the rain or whatever it may be. Okay, that's his sweet spot. Okay, I'll bet you almost 9 out of 10 times, if you were to take the reciprocal of that and you went to those banks, this product is a really good fit for them.
That's their ICP as well.
Because, and not every time, but I mean, as a general rule though, you'll find that's why that's their ideal customer profile, because they fit so damn well in there. Not just because of the technology integrations, there's other reasons. It could be financial reasons, like, hey, maybe they help them do an ag loan faster, or they do some other cool thing. That's why it's their ideal customer profile. Well, you represent that to that type of institution, they're like, man, wow, I didn't know that was out there. This is really, we should take a look at this and
So
really consider this.
The data
So
process
it's not
we run
necessarily
is
a
the same.
marketing game or a sales
Yeah.
game. It's just introducing the two parties that are ideal customer profile from the sense of it's a two-way mirror. Most of the time, that'll get it done. If you got a good product, that'll
What
get you
Matthew
there.
and I do when we have a bank call that's got a complicated problem, they want to look at a certain type of solution, the process I go through on data is identical to what I do on the vendor side, right? It's really all about interoperability of systems and ideal customer profile, and then it's called a querying exercise from there to find the ones that fit, right?
Yeah.
So you want to hear a
it's
crazy
funny
story?
because it's brilliant way
Here's
to do
another
it.
great story for you. All right.
Okay.
So we do this thing where we can figure out people's short list using math and our data pretty easily, right? And so we were doing about 105 or whatever a year. The bankers just call us up, just buddies, you know. It's like, hey, we're looking at changing the one line or this or that, whatever it may be, or what about the fields that we cover. And can you tell me my short list? You know, we went through 10.5 months of doing this with a team of 25
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I heard some
Yeah.
bullshit that you guys could do this in 5
like,
minutes.
There's
Yep.
80
That's
online
exactly
banking
right.
vendors. How would I narrow it
So
down? I'm
we
like,
go
there's
through the
5
whole
with a core
process.
integration to your core.
I remember
Yeah.
Lori that time, and she was like, okay, that was incredible. You did that in like 3 minutes, and you actually, you hit exactly our short list of who our 5 were that we came up with after 12 months or whatever. And I said, well, and she goes, so just for grants, who do you think we'll end up with? I said, well, you'll probably end up with choosing between one of these two. And I said, let me know how it works out. Just be interesting, you know. You don't know it's nothing. We're all good here. And so she called me a couple of weeks later, and she's like, that was crazy. We ended up between those two, and then we actually chose this one. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the story. So this gets back to Christopher Williston at IBAT. And he's like, all right, so I don't know if these guys have a monkey's foot or what the hell they're doing this thing, but I keep hearing this, that they can
A monkey's
do
foot.
this magic, right?
Rabbit's foot?
Magic.
Yeah, no, monkey's foot. That's like-
Magic.
you guys never been to New Orleans? That's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's voodoo.
Chicken foot witch.
Okay.
Yeah, man. All right. So
All
he's
right,
like,
all right.
I don't know if you guys, how you're doing
He
this
is
magic.
kind of a witch doctor, if we're honest.
So it's great. And I said, well, here's how we do all this, and you know, let's go through a bunch. I don't know how many. Oh my God, he vetted us for 6 months, bringing different banks. Every time we just nailed it every single time. It's math, you know. It's not hard to do once you got it. And then he was like, can you put this into software?
That
you
was,
could do this
that
for
was
every
an
bank.
important moment.
And that's when we were building the whole concept of bankers helping bankers. And I was like, we can do this, and we've known for a long time we can do this, but here's the deal. We're going to piss off everybody. Every consultant will be mad at us. Every big vendor will probably hate our guts. We'll make a lot of enemies trying to help that
Truth
many
is not
people
very
in
popular.
an automated
Really.
way. And you know what he said to me? He said, let's go pick a fight. And that's the day
I like
we
that.
became partners.
Christopher
I
told
swear
that
to God,
story
it's a true
last night
story.
at
He
dinner.
did.
And that's how
But-
we started Bankers Helping Bankers and created what's called Fintegration Strategists inside of Bankers Helping Bankers. Every bank, now there's banks
talk
now
about-
that are like, this is a standard part of our due diligence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Every
we hear
time,
that a
we're at
lot.
least gonna go look
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah, we're hearing that a lot. I think Matt Davies talked about that.
Yeah,
I've
it's
heard
true
from
stuff.
others that Can you imagine being in senior leadership and having the tool available, and you made a, let's just say, a poor decision and you didn't utilize the tool?
Oh, yeah.
I was in
You'd probably toast, right?
I was in Kansas with a room full of CEOs, and I'm talking about this, and I get done, I go over, and like all of them walk over and go, "Explain to me where that shit's at again, because I'm about to make sure my bank's using it."
But
Well, let me tell you,
you just
consultants.
came full circle on your point, man.
I
Right?
know. It's
Like,
right
well,
on.
Here's
back
the best
to-
part.
Oh, wait,
Hang on,
I-
this is
I
your
gotta
idea.
hammer this.
Hang on, I'm
All
gonna
right,
give you
go
credit
ahead.
right
Go
here,
ahead,
right
go
here,
ahead,
right
go
now.
ahead.
You know whose idea it was to do this, do the whole damn thing, put together this whole thing, and then make it free for the bankers?
There you go.
Nice work.
Here's my thought, and this is where I'm gonna make your point for you.
Yeah.
All right, and this is a reach. You talk about innovation, usually crazy, right? My thought is, you're gonna flush out the good guys from the bad guys,
Yeah,
and I think that
agree.
the good guys would be willing to sponsor transparency to bankers.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's really where your point started, right?
Yeah.
Was being able to put this in bankers' hands because you think you'll win.
Yeah.
They have the truth. If you wiped out all the sales shittery, right? You think that if the bank had all the facts that you did.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
so you come full circle, and we've only,
That's
granted,
who our
Matthew and I have had to
sponsors
turn
are.
away, maybe one or two folks that really wanted to sponsor that.
Yeah.
Because it's like putting all of our word
Yeah.
on somebody, right?
Right.
Like you guys, right? Better have not just a lot of trust and friendship, but everything better bangarang,
We
right?
turned
Yeah.
down some
And
money
so-
to spin your head around.
If you think about it, we need to feel good about the people, the product, integrity, and all that. And also, the data needs to line up to be the right choice, right? And it's funny because of our premier sponsors that have jumped up, it's like, I'll tell you most of the time, the math is going to choose them. And the
Yeah.
people that, probably wouldn't want to sponsor, have been invited to sponsor,
Yep.
it's because they're really good sales organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had
There's-
one.
There's
we had
your
one.
That was
making your point for you
that
there,
was a
buddy.
eloquent way,
But you
right?
nailed it.
That was pretty
Yeah,
good.
that's cool. That's cool.
Could have used a lot different words there.
But
That
look,
was good.
you could have told us to pound sand too, right? I mean, why do you guys want to sponsor Bankers Helping Bankers? I get the point of putting the data in their hands. You guys are the right answer. Transparency and education helps them make the right decision. You believe it's you, right? But wouldn't everybody think that a person sitting in that situation just gonna sit back and put paper in the printer, man, right? I'm gonna win.
Well,
You know?
we talked about consultants earlier, and I'm sure there are some really good consultants somewhere. But what I would say is that I'll give you a consultant story. We were working with a consultant, and he said, "You know what? You guys are a perfect fit, but I can't recommend you." You know what his reason was?
Because his brother-in-law worked at the competitor.
That has happened, but no.
I've
So
had that happen.
it was literally, if I recommend a conversion or something different than what they have now, it's going to be hard, and then they may not use me in the future.
All right, now you hit a nerve bad.
And I'm like, so even though it's
Guys.
better for the bank, even though it's better for the bank, it's better for their customers, you won't recommend them because you may not be able to get used again in the future
You
by
want
the
to know
bank.
what has absolutely killed community banking? You want to just break the news real quick?
Oh, I agree.
Let's go in.
Cheaper to
and
keeper.
Let's go in there and let's negotiate a contract. Let's add, 11 years to it, right? And a bunch of other products, and we'll save you some money.
Yep.
Rather than go out and do the harder thing for the consultant and go get best of breed where it's necessary, I don't think a banker I've ever talked to knows that is what is occurring. And I'll tell
That's
you,
exactly right.
in the
I
numbers,
agree.
we saw bundled solutions at banks go from 48% of banks to 82% of banks in 5 years.
Say that again.
48% of banks bought the bundle. 5 years later, 82% of banks buy the bundle.
It's incredible.
Consultants selling, renew with them and I can get you a deal, because a lot of consultants, you're actually making money on the take if you save them money, right?
Yep.
But think about being the senior leadership at the bank. How does math not work?
Yeah.
That made sense.
Yeah.
The dollars, I can show you the money we made, it's great, right? Wait for the next one, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what
you're gonna
we
convert again
spend
and put
so
your
much
bank
time, me and
thing,
Matthew talking to bankers,
customer on.
And I mean, I'm like shooting a
Ah.
text to Matthew with a tear in my eye, and I'm like, should I recommend burning down the bank? Because that'd be easier
Yeah.
than getting out of this.
Yep.
They
Okay,
bundled
here's a great
themselves
story.
up so
The guy
badly.
is using integration strategies
It's
inside
bad.
bankers helping bankers. And he said, I think this thing's broke. Because it keeps coming back telling me there's nobody.
I have no choices.
I
What
have no
integration
choice.
strategist
Why is
tells
it,
me.
so is it not working or what? And Tanner's like, it means you have no choices. Okay? And so
He'd
it took
bundled
him a
himself
while.
so badly.
Yeah.
I
So
literally
we
did
went back
not
over
have
it
a
several
competitive
times,
choice.
back and forth, and for him to finally get to the point where he realized that
He was pissed.
this decision with this core that he had made earlier had limited his options such that there literally is no one other than the bundle from
Yep.
the core to actually keep his bank alive. And it was that, my God,
Matthew.
what have I done? I knew it was a big
You know
decision,
who that was?
but I didn't,
Who was
no,
that?
don't you do that. You
Oh.
don't do that.
All right, that's
Let's
fair.
just say he launched the most successful direct bank
Ah,
of the year because he had no opportunities to innovate on the traditional side of his
Got
bank.
Yeah.
got
Right.
it. I got it. Yep.
You know.
Yeah, I know, and that's
That's a
incredible.
full circle story right there.
That
That-
is.
That's the power of the bundle when you go from 48% core strategic to 82% core strategic.
Yeah.
All right, take it one step deeper. If 82% of the banks are core strategic, they have all of these products from one vendor.
Think
right?
about the conversion.
Yeah.
So
rate.
think about when we start talking about digital transformation. Well, if you
Bullshit.
know that 84% of the banks run on 3 cores, Right.
Mhm.
what exactly are they supposed to transform?
Yeah.
The equivalent of digital transformation is like literally 9 times out of 10, it starts with an F probably, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
it
all the
does.
same
Yeah.
stuff.
I thought
Oh,
you were
look-
gonna say
And
starts
why
with
are
bullshit.
we putting the onus on the banks to change their experience? It's like they don't have any control over that.
No.
Let me give
They have
you
a solution.
the opposite side from like the vendor side, right?
Give us a happy story.
Well,
Sounds
I don't
good.
know about that, but
Right.
what I would say is like, so we just finished our integration with Q2, right? So that way, it's a seamless experience for the customer. So if a bank is using Q2, they can turn on a switch, and now their customers can get all their statements, all those pieces from merchant services. If I went to a vendor or another core provider who also has a
You wouldn't be in.
product,
Competitive
I
product.
can't get in.
Right.
I absolutely can't. They're like, no, that competes with our product. You're out. I can't do it.
But nobody'd ever say that out loud, right?
No.
That's not what the website
No.
says, Ryan. That's not what the
No.
website says.
I thought they called that open banking.
Yeah,
Not
that's
quite
not
so
what
open.
happens.
I'll tell you guys, we're seeing it a ton. I mean, look, we've all done this a long time here. We all know better.
Yeah.
But the really cool little bitty fintechs with a neat little idea that are showing up, they're getting crushed by that,
Mhm.
and they have no idea why.
Yeah.
They're
That's
looking
just
at it like, but it's good for everybody. It's good for the bank and their customers. It's good for America.
Yeah.
Like, why would you kill this? And like, S&P 500 economics.
Well, you
Yeah.
talked
You
about
know, I mean,
you talked about the bundle a minute
The
ago. You talked about
largest companies
the
sometimes
cost
I'd
of
rather
that
have.
integration, okay, which is astronomical. So if I had a free product, it still costs that much, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have, like, we'll talk about open marketplace and open banking. All right, I can write my product into your sandbox, and all of a sudden now I can offer it to you, and I can write to your sandbox and your sandbox. And you guys think for a minute that I didn't have to sign over something in blood before I start getting live institutions?
Sure.
Okay, 30%, right?
Yeah.
And when that goes out the door for I've lost 30% of my revenue just to be able to get this integration. I still don't have a live bank yet, which
That's
is
exactly right.
another whole
Yep.
other worm to turn.
Which brings me to how do baby fintechs get born?
Great full circle moment, right? So, in other words, if you don't have 3 references, you
Oh.
can't even get into
Oh.
the first bank. So,
That's
so
one of the
almost-
first
it's
questions I
better.
get.
Yeah.
Just so much better. All right, so how do I get my first 3 references, right? And if I can't get
Hey,
a bank without a
done
reference,
this
then
my
we go
whole
cat
life,
and a horse,
beats
right?
me.
Okay, cart and a horse. So what we've done at BHB, at Bankers Helping Bankers, is that test pilot program.
Yep.
So now we have institutions that want to be innovative. They're not intending to turn this loose to every one of their customers and flip a switch. They're saying, look, I'll run it through the money paces, the money flow
Yep.
Yeah.
of the institution. And, you know,
Let's do a
we're
friends
kidding
and
around,
family.
we say friends and family, but it's
Right.
literally like members of the bank, right? And they test out the money flow process,
Yep.
and we get this thing compliant working, and everything's great, okay. that through 3 institutions, now you have the beginnings of your 3 referenceable
Yeah.
accounts.
Matthew announced one yesterday at the
So the bankers are
event, and
actually
three
involved.
bankers signed up.
But check it out, the bankers are now involved in the process of creating new technology for banking.
That's
Bankers
huge.
helping bankers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Finally.
You know, the other thing that always surprises me too is banks are like, well, it's a lot of work. It's like, well, I know it's a lot of work, but what if it's free for a year? You're like, I'm
Right.
sorry, do what?
Yeah,
I'm like,
free.
I use that F word, free. You know, and they're just like, oh my God. I was like, so yeah, it might be a little bit of work, but if you get that sucker for a year for free,
Well,
is that a game changer? And I'm like, well,
Comparative.
yeah.
it allows
Yeah.
you some negotiation. So I remember right when digital account opening was new, we had found a company that had only been with one bank. And the things that I had to do internally to our bank employees
Yes.
to sign off on us going with a brand new company was
You gotta fudge
astronomical.
some things.
Dude, we had to look at their financials. We had
Yeah.
to go dive deep in those
Yeah.
financials too.
Somebody you wouldn't lend to, right?
Oh, 100%, you know? And so we basically had to almost guarantee it. All that to say is like, it took a lot to get there, but we finally got there, you know?
Great example of integration of the data and bankers on bankers. I know the history book of these companies and who they
Yeah.
sign and where their integrations are.
Okay,
right?
so
And I
full
know,
circle.
I can remember from back then when Radius was still around, Radius' core and y'all's core, right?
Yeah.
And then you know the environments where those players play, right? The exact same truth is true from a banker standpoint of how they should look at products,
Mhm.
right? So you don't run into that problem of maybe they've got 3,000 references, but none are on my core. I'm still toast.
Well, and what it did, it allowed us to negotiate too, you know, to your point of being free. We didn't get it for free. But what we did see is, okay, they're capital hungry.
Right.
Instead of paying on a monthly basis, what if we pay you all of it up front, or even a yearly basis? What if we prepay you
Yep.
all up at the front? That way you get the capital you need, and we get a very discounted rate.
Yep.
This
there's,
is something
there's
we're
lots
running
of
into,
ways
guys,
to win.
with the fund that drives me crazy. There's some of these other funds, and I'm running into these bankers that they want to basically be passive investors in funds so that they're exposed to fintech. Opposite way to think. I think like you. I want to invest in the fund because I want to play with companies that when you call me and ask me if I want a beta, hell yeah, because I just doubled my investment.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
I want to
right.
help them
Yeah.
go, right?
Right.
I actually want to. The capital is a part of the innovation cycle. We
Yeah.
need the charter. We
Yeah.
need the very smart compliance folks. Sometimes to be a bad guy and
Yeah.
educate. We need all of those pieces. We need the integrations to the cores and
So the work that y'all
partnership with our
did-
cores, not elsewhere, right?
So the work that you
Or-
did enabled them to get to a spot to work with Crossover Bank during PPP.
100%. Yeah.
Okay,
Bingo.
they saved a ton of businesses because of what. If you hadn't done what you did,
Bang.
this is where bankers helping bankers, test pilots, the whole program comes together. Is that it shouldn't be this damn difficult.
Yeah.
This should be much simpler.
Well,
If
and
you
one
hadn't
thing
done
I-
that difficult thing,
Oh.
that solution might not have existed.
Yeah.
And it was difficult, don't get me wrong. But I will say, we also invested in Mantle.
See?
And we
Bingo.
made a
You
lot of
bet.
money off of Mantle.
You bet.
The bank did. I
Yeah.
didn't,
Right.
unfortunately. But the bank
I'm
did.
just the guy that does the work.
Yeah.
right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.